The reactions to Nate Diaz's upcoming fight against Khamzat Chimaev have not been positive. One former fighter thinks that it's the UFC's payback against Nate speaking out against the organization and thinks it will be more like a public execution than a contest. So who actually asked for the matchup? And could Nate's next fight really be against Jake Paul? Plus, did Chimaev reveal that Nate was his childhood hero? Stay tuned for all of that and more MMA news. There's normally a lot of respect in sport for longtime athletes. Competitors often recognize what they have done for the sport and want to send them with dignity. Well, that's unless you are in the fight game. You never know how things will end in the octagon, but it does depend on your opponent. That's why some people think the matchup for Nate Diaz's last fight is disrespectful. Nate has been fighting with the UFC for more than 15 years and has earned himself a spot as a fan favorite. Nate and his brother Nick are loved for their toughness, their gangster personalities, and for not holding back in or out of the octagon. Both of them have had their issues with the UFC going back a long way, but Nate's dispute with President Dana White has flared up over the past year and it led to a standoff. Dana wasn't giving Nate the money he thought he was worth, and so Nate refused to fight. This year he publicly asked to be released from his contract and even took a picture of himself urinating on the UFC headquarters. So you can understand why Dana might be a little pissed off. Former fighter Dan Hardy thinks this is why Nate was matched up with the rising superstar Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev is taking the sport by storm. In 2020, he won 3 fights in 3 months and has been awarded Performance of the Night in every fight. Talking about Diaz against Chimaev, Hardy has said, "It feels like a very, very cool thing to do to someone that is a legitimate legend. Because they've spoken out against the organization, they're going to get executed live on TV." So what did Dana White have to say about these accusations? Well, he defended himself and said that actually it wasn't even his idea. The president was asked about the matchup on an episode of TMZ Sports and whether or not Nate was being fed to Chimaev for punishment. Dana responded by saying, "Well, the people that are saying that obviously didn't read what Nate said. I asked for this fight. It's true, and he also asked for Francis Ngannou." White also said that if he really wanted to see Nate get slaughtered, then he would have given him the fight against heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou. Even if nobody else believes in him, Nate still believes in himself. Last year, when he was asked about fighting Chimaev, he dismissed it because he thought of the youngster as a rookie. But after Chimaev went 3 rounds and won against Gilbert Burns, he earned some respect in the sport. And if Chimaev couldn't knock Gilbert Burns out, he probably won't be able to knock out the famously tough kid from Stockton. And Chimaev might have an impressive wrestling past, but Diaz is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So even though Nate is coming into this fight as a massive underdog, he still has some chances to turn the tables. That's what he did in 2016 against an undefeated Conor McGregor. Then in his memorable post-fight interview, he said, "I'm not surprised, mother effers." Could we be hearing this from Nate again at UFC 279? Coming up, what did Nate tell Dana about the idea of fighting Jake Paul? And what did Khamzat Chimaev say about Nate being a legend of the sport? So don't go anywhere. It's clear that Nate wants out of the UFC. He's sick of the politics and just wants to fight. But he can also see opportunities for himself outside of MMA. One of those that has been hanging around is Jake Paul. Jake has been having his own feud with Dana White and even released a diss track aimed at the UFC president. His latest offer to Dana was to fight Nate Diaz for free inside the octagon if the minimum pay and conditions of fighters was raised. Jake didn't expect that deal to go through, but he has put an offer on the table to fight Nate in the boxing ring after his MMA career is finished. Diaz would be the latest ex-UFC fighter to go up against Jake in the boxing ring. Former champions Ben Askren and Tyron Woodley both tried their hand in the ring and got knocked out by the YouTuber. And boxing legend Oscar De La Hoya has said that he would promote the fight through his company Golden Boy Promotions if it goes ahead. But when Dana White was asked about the fight, he said that Nate Diaz wasn't really considering it. Nate apparently told Dana that he would never fight Jake Paul and that the whole idea was goofy. Jake responded to those comments and thinks that Dana is just trying to tarnish his reputation. He said, "Dana is doing anything he can do to discredit me, but I can beat every single person in the UFC in a boxing match at my weight class, which would be about 170 to 175 pounds. Kamaru Usman, Masvidal, Nate Diaz, all of these guys I would beat, all of them in boxing." Next, Stockton slap. Interviews with athletes can get fiery. Sometimes that's what reporters rely on. They try their hardest to provoke a reaction, but sometimes it comes back to bite them. Backstage at UFC 276, that's what happened to a full send reporter. Nate Diaz had been there to watch Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski, and Alex Pereira win their fights, but he got in one of his own behind the scenes. He was confronted by journalist Shawnee Mack, who had some questions for him, but but Diaz told Mac, "You'd better watch your tweets about me," before slapping the microphone out of his hand and then the baseball cap off his head. After the event, Mac revealed why Diaz slapped him. He had mocked Diaz's teammate Nick Maximoff after he lost to Andre Petrosky in May this year. Talking about the slap, Mac said, "You know what? Effing right. I probably deserved it." But even if the reporter himself accepted Diaz's actions, one person wasn't about to let it slide, and no prizes for guessing. It was Jake Paul. Mac was interviewing Jake for his since-canceled fight against Hasim Rahman Jr. when Jake said, "Nate, next time you do that SHIT, I'm effing you up. This is my boy, alright? I'm his bodyguard now, for free." Jake once again dared Nate to fight him and tried to lure him out of his UFC contract. But it's not up to him, Jake. If it were, Nate might already be in the ring with you. Footage has emerged of a very young Nate Diaz fighting in what has been labeled his first fight. Nate is just 17 years old at the time and has blonde tips in his hair, but he already has much of the trademark Diaz fighting technique. He throws some wild punches early in the fight before going for a takedown and eventually submitting his opponent Robert Lemon. It was an unsanctioned bare-knuckle fight between Team Gracie and Team Kihon. This is how Nate trained to become the fighter that he is, and it should even worry Khamzat Chimaev. And earlier this year, Nate called out Khamzat for avoiding the matchup. He said, "I've been trying to fight for a year and months. I also tried to fight Khamzat for the last month and a half, but he was hurt. He had visa issues, overweight, and now his BITCH is off getting married instead of fighting. What the FUCK?" Chimaev responded to the comments by accusing Diaz of being high. Both Diaz brothers have a history with marijuana, and Nick was even suspended for 5 years after failing a drug test. But it hasn't slowed their fighting down. Even Chimaev recognizes Nate's contribution to the sport. Last month he said, "I am happy he's fighting with me. He is one of the legends. Nate said he doesn't like me, but I like that guy. I grew up on him. Now I fight with the guys that I was watching. It must be pretty special to be fighting your heroes. But at the end of the fight, only one of you can win." Do you think Nate can surprise everyone again with a win in his final fight? Or is Chimaev just too strong? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.